Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Mountain Point High School's 2020 Tempe Union District Board Debate. My name is Taryn Collins.
And my name is David Dong. We will be moderating tonight's forum. Tonight, we will hear candidates from the Tempe Union High School District Board give brief statements and answer questions to prepare voters for this year's election.
This forum was arranged by Mr. Lane Waddell's second period AP Government class. This group of students has worked tirelessly since the beginning of the school year to host tonight's forum.
Before we get started, we would like to thank the following people who were critical to the execution of this event. Mr. Cole with the TUHSD IT department, Principal Tamika Banks, the current TUHSD Governing Board, Mr. Lane Waddell, and other student volunteers here tonight.
The format for tonight will consist of the candidates from the Tempe Union High School District presenting opening statements, followed by questions. To end the night, candidates will present closing statements.
Tonight's ground rules are as follows. First, closing statements must not target another candidate. Second, opening statements are limited to 1 minute each. Third, candidates will have no more than 1 minute to answer a question. And fourth, closing statements will be limited to 1 minute per candidate.
All right, we will now begin the forum for the candidates for the Tempe Union High School Governing Board. The candidates on the panel in alphabetical order by last name that we have here tonight are Dawn Fletcher, Verdetta Hodge, Sarah Lindsay James, Sandy Lowe, Armando Montero, and Paige Reeser. Thank you, candidates, for being here tonight. We will begin opening statements with Dawn Fletcher.
Well, first, thank you to the students. This is a wonderful opportunity. I was involved with student government when I was a student at my high school, and I appreciate the opportunity for you to put together this forum and allow us to talk. Tempe Union High School District is a very large district, has a budget of about $125 million, has over 13,000 students, and it also has between 3,000 and 4,000 employees. I think what the people are looking for is a mature voice and someone who has both teaching and business and background that can help guide our school districts. I'm a former teacher. I taught for a while. And for the past 20 years, I've been involved with different education-related issues. I've been involved with the school board on various topics like mental health. I studied that for 18 months with Tempe Union High School District. I've also been involved with our finance committee, and I'm working right now on a gifted program. I believe that I've got the background and the experience, the maturity that's going to be needed to help guide Tempe Union High School District in the coming days. I look forward to this forum tonight and hearing from each one of the candidates and participating with each one of the students. So thank you for putting this on, and I look forward to a wonderful night tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Fletcher, for your statement. We will now move on to Verdetta Hodge.
Hi, I'm Verdetta Hodge. I'm currently on the Tempe Union High School Governing Board. I'm the Governing Board President. I want to first start off by saying thank you to my Mountain Point students for all that you do, and I'm so proud of you guys. Every year that this has went on, I've been proud to see you guys do this, and it just makes me happy. I'm running again because I want to continue the work that I've started on the board, and being a part of the district is probably one of the best part of my life, actually, because I'm a graduate of Tempe High. I graduated from Tempe High School. I almost went to Mountain Point, but I didn't switch over when they opened. But I wanted to finish out at Tempe High because it's only been like 1 year. And it's been worth it. I have two wonderful sons. Both of them were graduates of McClintock. Go Chargers. And one is actually at NYU.
Thank you, Mrs. Verdetta Hodge, for your statement.
Yes, thank you.
We are now going to move on to Mrs. Sarah Lindsay James.
I almost did not unmute myself, so. Oh my goodness, Zoom days. Well, my name's Sarah Lindsay James. I'm a teacher. I'm a mom of 2 kids in Kyrene and future Tempe Union students. I'm also a Tempe High alum. And I started my teaching career actually at Desert Vista in 1999. One of the things that I've learned about being an educator is that we also have to learn how to advocate for education, for our public schools, and for our students. And of course, for our teachers. I've been doing that for the majority of my career. As a board member, I would want to ensure that we are centering the needs of our students and our educators. Our students need curriculum that represents them. They need support from counselors, from social workers, and they need the teachers that are empowered to teach them and meet their needs that are social, emotional, and academic. I'm running for Tempe Union to be a voice and an ear for our educators, our parents, and all students in Tempe Union. I think that if we work together, we can ensure our district is offering the best education for all our kids.
All right, thank you for your opening statement. We'll now move on to Mrs. Sandy Lowe.
Thank you. So first, thank you, Mr. Waddell and the government class for putting this on. I look forward to this every year. I'm a longtime public education advocate, and I'm just finishing my second term on the school board. I've been a part of this community for 33 years, and I've been involved in school districts, our 3 districts, for 25. We've raised 2 sons who are graduates of Tempe Union, and it was really through their experiences that I observed how important a quality education is to each and every student. And what I really understood was everyone deserves the same opportunities, but everyone requires different types of support to find success. So during all my committee work and my volunteer work, I've learned to understand what the issues are, what's important to our stakeholders. I've learned valuable lessons in leadership from all of you in this community. And my desire is always to have a positive impact or effect on each and every student that enters our doors. So this truly has been a journey for me, and I look forward to sharing a little bit more tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Lowe. We will now be moving on to Mr. Armando Montero.
Well, first of all, thank you to the students for putting this forum on. As I said before, this is your governing board, and it's the reason why I'm in this race. I'm a proud product of our district. I graduated from Desert Vista back. I first got involved with our district mainly around mental health and suicide prevention. After losing a close friend of mine my sophomore year and going through a lot of my own struggles, I got involved and helped introduce a resolution to our governing board, which has now passed more than a dozen districts across the state, and helped bring a statewide conversation to mental health and even testified down at the state legislature to make sure that our students had a voice in a lot of the policy that's being discussed. From there, I helped create and chair a student advisory committee to make sure that I worked alongside our superintendent and governing board to ensure that that student voice was there. I'm a strong believer that for a governing entity that oversees high schools, it's important that we bring in diverse perspectives, especially from someone that's been in the classroom recently, understands what it's like to be a student, and has seen the direct impact that this governing board has had on our student body. That's why I'm running for this board, and I'm looking forward to answering your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Montero. We will now be moving on to Mrs. Paige Reeser.
Well, hi, everyone. Thank you for hosting this tonight. It's great to see everyone. I am a middle school art teacher here in Tempe, serving at a Title I school for the last 7 years. And while I might not be a parent myself, I have taught thousands of students that have entered into the Tempe Union school district. I run my own business as an artist and also work within the community to help promote education in the arts. I've been recognized by Tempe Diablos and the city of Tempe for my excellence in art education. I'm endorsed by a lot of local school board members, city and state officials, and our current Corey Woods, our mayor. I'm running for Tempe Union School Board because I have the opportunity to impact the same students as they continue on to the high school level. If elected to the board, I'll collaborate with my value perspective as a Tempe elementary school teacher as we collaborate with neighboring school districts. As a member, I will focus on elevating teacher, parent, student, and classified staffs.
Thank you, Mrs. Reeser.
Thank you so much for all of your guys' responses. We will now begin with the questions. Beginning with you, Mr. Fletcher. What is your plan for supporting the education of special needs students during this pandemic? Mr. Fletcher, you are on mute.
There we go. You got me? Thank you. That's a very interesting question about what do we do with this. We studied several of these issues during the 18-month study session that we had on mental health. We need to address mental health in our communities here. We need to address mental health as it relates to our students. There's many things that we need to be doing. One thing I want to do is I want to get the counselors focused on mental health. And particularly as the students come back, there's been a real separation that has happened, and many of you have missed your peers and many have missed your friends. And I want to do all that we can to use the resources of both our community and both our school to make sure that we integrate the students back and that we help restore some of those systems that were so important for them. I also believe that we need to work with our teachers also to make sure they understand the resources and they have them available to make sure that each student is identified and treated in the way that it needs to be, so then they can have the full opportunity and experiences available.
Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. Now for you, Ms. Burdetta Hodge.
Can you repeat the exact question for me, please, so I can get it again?
Yes, of course. What is your plan for supporting the education needs of special needs students during this pandemic?
Well, thank you for that question. Our special needs students, they are on our top priority because not only is it that we're through a pandemic, we need to make sure that their mental health is secured. So what we are doing is we are securing more funding for more counselors for all of our students, including our special needs students. And also what we are also doing is working with our parents and our community and our teachers to make sure that all the resources is there while they're in class and when they're at home for the needs of while the pandemic is. So we are definitely working and giving more education around that, around special needs and social emotional. So those are doing, and I think that all of our students need help with social emotional. So we're going to be working with all of our community, our teachers, our parents, and our students.
Thank you, Ms. Hodge. Now moving on to Ms. James.
Thank you. Yes, I think that when we look at this, it's really honestly an issue of equity. We saw our schools reopen for all students, and I don't know what that's going to look like. But as an educator, what I do know, and as a mom, I know that my own children are at home and they want to be at school. They do not need to be at school. They can be at home right now. We have students with special needs that need interventions. We have students that are at risk that should be in a safe environment. And my wish would be that our districts had actually thought about the equity of the situation, provided safe spaces for kids who need it, provided robust PPE for service providers, filters in classes for special needs kids who have to be there for occupational therapy, physical therapy, whatever they need, services they need. And we could have approached that in a much more equitable situation. And instead we are opening our schools to every child. And I think that's going to cause an even more inequitable situation for our kids that are at risk and for our special needs kids. And I think that, again, when we look at things under an umbrella of equity and we let that guide us as a board, as a district, that we will see more success from all of our students.
Thank you, Ms. James. Now on to you, Mr. Montero.
Well, again, thank you for the question. And I want to echo what Ms. James said. And, I think the first thing that we should do as governing board members is go to our community. We have to make sure that we are communicating with our parents of students with special needs, as well as our teachers. I've been fortunate enough to talk with a lot of special education teachers as well as parents throughout this campaign to really understand what their needs are. We have to look at the transition and work with our feeder districts to make sure that the transition from our elementary districts to our district is seamless. Especially during the times that we have now. And I also want to touch on what Mr. Fletcher said. Mental health is why I'm in this race. As a current student at ASU, I've gone through virtual learning. I'm going through virtual learning, and I understand the impact that it has on our students academically and emotionally. So we have to be able to bring those perspectives into our governing board and make sure we're talking with our community members and those that are walking the walk to make sure that we make the most informed decisions.
Thank you so much for your response, Mr. Montero. Now for you, Ms. Wieser.
Well, when it comes to our special needs students, I think one of the biggest things we need to be focusing on right now as a district is really good communication between our special education teachers, our general education teachers, and the parents right now, because each of our students have such a variety of needs and really not one size fits all. So really making sure we're listening to those needs, and not only for academics, but for the social emotional support that we can give to these students at this time. I know that as a student that has gone through dyslexia, had a hard time reading and writing with speech, the services right now I know can be really struggling from the virtual now as we're moving slowly back into the classroom. So just making sure that we are supporting our students as much as possible.
Thank you so much for your response, Ms. Reeser.
All right, moving on to the next question, which we will be starting with Ms. Burdetta Hodge.
We forgot Mrs. Lau. Did she get a chance to answer the question?
No, I didn't. Thank you.
Sorry
So
about
do
that.
you want me to answer?
Yes, Ms. Lau, I'll repeat the question for you again.
Okay.
What is your plan for supporting the educational needs of special needs students during this pandemic?
So I can tell you what we've been doing. We brought our special needs students back August 17th because we felt they needed to be in school and so they have a team of experts working with them. We have a psychologist and a social worker at each school along with a counselor. So they get, and their families are involved in conversations with all of these people on a regular basis. So, you know, we take our neediest kids, and that includes foster kids, kids that are homeless. We brought all of those students back August 17th because we knew the importance of them to have that person-to-person connection and those support services that they need to be successful.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lau.
All right, now we will move on to our second question, which we are starting answers with Ms. Burdetta Hodge. How do you plan to allocate funds for mental health resources on campus? What is the district's approach to mental health assistance?
Okay, thank you for that question. How we allocated funds. We also started off in the beginning of the board meeting this year with an idea about if we're gonna fund our SROs versus our counselors and how we allocated the funds. So we did a study session on that, which if you have, we came to the conclusion that it's not one or the other. We need to add, we definitely know we need more social workers in our schools. We need more counselors. We need more effect on that. So what we did as a district is we ran out for grants and funding so we can get more counselors and social workers per school. So each school can have more resources in the counselors separate from our SRO. So it's not one or the other, it can be both. And that's what we did. We went out and got more funding because we know that how special needs is it's going to actually be even more. And I don't think it's just for our students. I think it's for our teachers and our staff too. I think everybody needs counseling and especially with the pandemic. So this is going to affect not just our students, going to affect our teachers. So we need people that all of our community and TUHS can talk to. So that's what we did is we found more funding so we can get more people in the right places that can help out with special needs.
Thank you, Ms. Hodge, for your answer. We will now be moving on to an answer from Ms. Sarah Lindsay James.
Thank you so much. Yes, I know as an educator and a parent how vital these services are, and I think they need to be prioritized in a budget. I was very happy to see this summer that Tempe Union did set aside that $450,000 to allocate those funds to counselors and social workers. And I'm so happy that we do have, I think it's a counselor per site, full-time, 5 days a week. And that's a great start. So we need to keep prioritizing that because that's still not enough, especially in a pandemic. When it comes to having access to these resources, I know my own middle schooler who's struggling with school online. He's had teachers reach out and let us know that these resources are there. They're keeping an eye on the kids. It's a network of parent concern, teacher outreach. It's hard to do on a screen, but they're doing it. Teachers are amazing. And just knowing who to call, knowing that we have that network defined and down so that when a student is struggling and needs services, we know how to get them to our kids.
All right, thank you so much for your answer, Ms. Sarah Lindsay James. We'll now be moving on to an answer from Ms. Sandy Lowe.
Thank you. So the need for mental health has grown over the last 10 years, and I'm really proud of what we've done as a district. We just finished our grant. We're going to get a new grant to have 3 health and wellness coaches that work with our students in groups on drug prevention, prevention of underage drinking, and some of these dangerous things that sometimes kids get involved with. And like Sarah said, this is the first year we have full-time youth specialists at each of our schools, and that's through a partnership with City of Tempe. And then in 2019 and 20, we created a coordinator of social emotional wellness. And we are now developing a 3-year plan for professional development. So we're always increasing our services. One thing that I would like to see is support service in the counseling departments to take away some of their paperwork, so it would free up counselors to work with our students directly. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Lowe, for your answer. We will now be moving on to Mr. Armando Montero.
Again, thank you for the question. And this is a multifaceted issue. There are parts to where district policy can change, have changed in the right direction. We need to have board members that are going to allocate for increased funding so we can hire more counselors and social workers and psychologists, as well as reduce administrative tasks for our counselors at our counseling department. But the biggest part, I think, is we have to take steps to reduce the stigma around mental health. We can hire as many counselors as we want, but I can tell you firsthand that there are a lot of students that won't seek out help from their counselor because the mental health is viewed as a weakness. So we have to take steps as a district to create a culture of acceptance and to destigmatize it, to show that mental health is important. And that, our teachers are there for them, our counselors are there for them. A study from the ACLU showed that students are 21 times more likely to seek out resources on campus than off campus. So we as a district have a lot to do, what policy can do, but there's also a lot that we can do, to open honest conversations around mental health to make sure we reduce that stigma so that students can feel safe to go and seek those resources.
Thank you for your answer. We will now be moving on to Ms. Paige Research.
Well, mental health, issues with our youth has been on the rise for about the last 10 years. And especially now within this pandemic, we're going to really see the effects with our students that we have not fully grasped yet until we start kind of seeing them in the classroom. I also think one of the things that we need to be not only opportunities for our students, but also making sure we have trainings, not only for our teachers with how to identify, which I think the district already has been doing such an amazing job with this, but also how we can better support our teachers because they're under a lot of pressure during this time. And I really want to make sure that we're advocating for them to make sure that we keep teachers back in the classroom. And sorry, my dog's showing up now.
All right, thank you for your answer. We will now be moving on to Mr. Don Fletcher.
Well, thank you for the question. This was one of my big interests in Tempe Union High School District. That's why I served on the committee for 18 months to study this issue. I think Tempe Union High School District has done a good job in addressing these, and several of the ideas that came out of that cadre have been implemented. So I compliment the work that our district has been doing. One thing that I would want to do differently that we haven't done yet is we haven't done an inventory of what our counselors do. And that's one of the recommendations that came out of our committee was we need to sit down with our counselors and dissect their day, figure out what they're doing and what is necessary, and maybe what we could do through other means. Maybe rather than adding an additional counselor, we need to add an additional secretary and relieve some of those administrative burdens there that they have to deal with. I know as a parent, the importance of mental health. I had 2 of my daughters, both of them had friends commit suicide during their teenage years. And we grieved with the families that lost those young men. We also had to help our daughters they were dealing with that. And so I know firsthand how this impacts our youth. I understand the importance of it. I've been involved with this issue for an extended period of time. I believe they'll be a strong advocate for this issue on Tempe Union High School Governing Board.
All right, thank you for your response, Mr. Fletcher.
We will begin with Ms. James. If elected, how will you support students in their education outside of the classroom? Will there be provisions for students outside the school's bounds?
That's a really awesome question and really interesting. I think that we know that students need support outside of school. And when it comes down to it, it all kind of comes down to funding, right? And one of the things we need to do is to ensure that our state is properly funding education. It's mandated in the Constitution of our state that we fund it through taxation and improve upon it. Programs like that would be incredible. And whether that is paying teachers an extra stipend to do clubs outside of school, which I know does happen in schools as well, but we're talking about supporting education, whether that's supporting them academically, maybe musically or artistically, to be able to have our educators help with that, to be able to have maybe innovative programs, again, is going to take funding. And I think that is a wonderful thing to focus on and to fund. But I also do believe that any board member or any candidate that wants those kind of programs also needs to be working tirelessly to fund and to allocate funds for those things. So yes on 208.
Thank you so much from you, Ms. James. We will now move on to Sandy Lowe.
Can you please repeat the question?
Yes, of course. If elected, how will you support students in their education outside of the classroom? Will there be provisions for students outside the school's bounds?
So we do several things. I mean, after school, we have teachers staying and tutoring. We have after school tutoring. Some of our academic intervention happens after school. Funding is the key, and we only have so much budget, and we have to make every dollar count. So we do rely a lot on grants. We just recently got a grant, I think it was from the city of Tempe, for our art teachers. There were 3 schools that got, anywhere from $500 to $700 to do some enrichment activities with our students. So I support that. And I mean, I wish we had more money in our budget. Extracurricular and after school is very important to our students, almost as important as class, because those are some fun things. And you got to have some enjoyment in school to really go to school every day. So it does come down to funding, and grants we're very good at getting grants for our teachers and students.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lowe. We will now move on to Mr. Montero.
Yeah, and thank you for the question. As Ms. James and Ms. Lau have said, extracurriculars is a critical part of a student's high school experience. It also has huge implications for their mental health. It's these extracurricular activities where they're able to find like-minded students outside of the classroom to connect with, and being able to expand those. And it comes down to funding. Again, we have to have board members that are going to be advocates inside and outside of the boardroom to fund our public education properly. We have to be able to expand these extracurricular opportunities and to create a culture in our district of, we aren't just going to be board members or a district that supports you in the classroom. We're there for you outside of the classroom. And that comes with being able to expand these programs, support their mental health, but also to be able to find the funding to do these things.
Thank you so much, Mr. Montero. We will now move on to Ms. Weiser.
I want to first start off by saying thank you, Sarah and Sandy, for bringing up the arts component to this. I think really the arts for after school programs is one of the biggest, not only advocates to help kids move them in their education, but also that social and emotional support that you were saying too. I know as a student myself growing up, my after school programs, especially within art, were a big, just help me motivate myself to want to pursue other things as I moved on. But a couple things where we can look at is definitely grants through the city of Tempe. I have personally gone through that process myself and done that. So I think really advocating with our city, our city councils and seeing what else we can do to come up with that extra funding would be a great way to use those resources.
Thank you so much, Ms. Weiser. Now for you, Mr. Fletcher.
Well, I agree with what Sarah James had to say there. We simply need more funding for education. As a school board member, I'm going to be out in the community talking about schools. We need to tell our community how important our schools are. We need to tell our community how their taxpayer dollars are being spent wisely. As a school board member, we need to be an advocate for strong schools and for strong communities. And that's something that I will do as a school board member. I have a firm belief that every high school student needs a moniker. They need some sort of an identity. And that's where after school programs come into play. I know quite a bit about this because I had one son who was on the varsity basketball team. One son was on the varsity volleyball team. I had another daughter who participated in choir, another daughter who participated in basketball. These are interesting programs that help the students feel a better sense of who they are. It gives them a sense of identity. We need to support them. Desert Vista High School has had a great marching band program, and wonderful things come about from those students' opportunities to do those things. So I support these programs. I support the tutoring. And I, as a school board member, will be out in the community and at the legislature advocating for more money for education.
Thank you for your response, Mr. Fletcher. Now for you, Ms. Hodge.
Yes, thank you for the question. I agree with everybody. It comes down to funding that we need to make sure that we have our extracurriculum from the arts to sports to academics, anything that we do after school. But we also need grants to make sure that we have people to do it. So we also need teachers, and we need staff to fund these things also, because we can't expect our teachers to do this without a stipend or a fund. So we actually need to it has to be a mixture. It has to be, make sure we have the plan we have staff, we have funding for our students. And also you asked the question about outer district kids. I believe that our outer district kids deserve just as much of the extracurriculum as the inner district kids. And also that means that we need funding for buses to make sure that they can get back and forth to these programs, because that's a lot of the reason why our outer school district kids don't perform, because they're afraid of how they're going to get home after school. So we have to make sure that we have to have funding for all of it. It's a holistic scenario. So we have to make sure our teachers, our students, and everybody is well funded and well taken care of. So that means that we have to worry about from the bus drivers all the way up to the staff who's going to be working there at the extracurriculum program. So it all comes back down to the same thing. We agree. It comes down to money, and we will always advocate for that.
Thank you, Ms. Hodge.
Thank you so much.
We will now be moving on to our next question. This time we will be starting with Ms. James. Or sorry, we started with you last time. We will be starting with Ms. Lowe. As of September 7th, the district voted to increase the 2021 maintenance and operations budget by 6%. Do you believe that this is sufficient enough funds to keep our students and staff safe during the pandemic?
Are you talking about when we increased our M&O override to 5%? Okay, well, no, we still had to go out. We're getting some federal money and some state money to help us with pandemic needs, like for cleaning the buildings and all those different things that we're finding, some extra computer work or computer software. So we're getting a lot of funding from different sources. That 5% is not for that pandemic. Most of that went to our teachers' salaries.
All right, thank you, Ms. Lowe, for your answer. We will now be moving on to Mr. Montero.
Right. Yeah. Something that a lot of us have been saying on here again tonight is the fact that we do need more funding for public education. When it comes to what Ms. Lau said, when it comes to, cleaning the classrooms and laptops, especially with the pandemic, we have seen an unprecedented amount of need from our district to support our students who may not have the resources that a lot of other students have. We have a very diverse district, in a very large district, and we have to make sure that we have the proper support for every one of those students. And that comes with an increased cost. We have to make sure that we're investing, the district has started investing in one-on-one laptop assignment to students to make sure that they have access to what they need. But we also have to make sure we're expanding, broadband access and making sure that our students have the necessary resources to connect to their classes. You know, even if we do go back in person, a lot of students still aren't comfortable with that. And we have to make sure that we still cater to their needs. And, you know, that comes with increased funding. And we have to have those board members that are going to be down at the state legislature advocating for our public schools.
Thank you, Mr. Montero. We'll now be moving on to Ms. Paige Reeser.
Well, of course, as everyone's echoing, yes, more funds. I think one thing, you know, when we're looking at, as we're moving into this transition where we're having, you know, partially online, partially in the classroom, I think one of the biggest things when we're in the classroom, making sure we are at, you know, providing those classroom resources is really, really important. As a teacher myself, I have used my own funds to for classroom supplies. So looking into like PPE and to those supplies in the classroom, making sure that we have those resources for our students, which I think we have done a good job. And hopefully as we're moving forward, we will continue to do that more in the classroom.
All right, thank you, Ms. Reeser, for your answer. We will now be moving on to Mr. Fletcher.
Well, Paige, I'm sorry to know that you're having to spend your personal resources. We ought to have those resources available for you. I'm on the Tempe Union High School Education Foundation, and we recently met with the Tempe Secondary Education Association and let them know that we have funds available from our foundation for grants for teachers. And we have raised money, and it's there, and it's earmarked for the teachers, and we hope to be able to share that as a foundation. I've also been involved with the Kiwanis Club of Tempe, where we've contacted the superintendent and provided the opportunity for us to provide computers and laptops for students that don't have them. I believe we need more community involvement. And that's one thing that I'll do as a school board member. We need to have a spokesperson out there in the community talking about these issues, raising awareness of these issues, and also raising money. We all talk about money and how we need more money. Well, part of it comes by telling people we've got good schools and they need to support us. And I'll be a strong advocate out there in the community speaking for these things.
Thank you, Mr. Fletcher, for your answer. We'll now be moving on to Ms. Hodge.
Okay, thank you. And I echo everyone. It's all about funding. We all need, that's the money. And I will say something to you, Don. You're absolutely correct, because as a board member, we have the ability to use our voices and our statue in the community to build money. Like I can say Sandy and I, we worked on every override and bonds. We're out there, we knock doors, we go and answer phones. We are out there trying to commit more money towards for funding. We also, I work with the unions and the apprenticeship to make sure they offer us certain things. We can get funding from them on that too. They help out with money. Our kids, some of our kids need, they're not going off to college. They want to do apprenticeships. How to help them get the funding for that. That's a grant we can get. Those are things that we do as a district. One thing Tempe Union is doing well is we're starting next year, we're doing one-on-one. So starting our freshman year, every one of our freshmen will get a laptop. We're starting that. That's a big grant. We have to say thank you, Diane Welding on, because she got that grant for us. So as Tempe Union, we're starting in the right direction, but it does come down to funding. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your answer, Ms. Hodge. We'll now be moving on to Ms. James.
Thank you so much. Obviously, I think the answer of the night is funding. And when we look at our schools, we look at the past few decades where Arizona has systematically slashed education funding. We are now being asked to do something that seems almost impossible. We have underfunded schools that have not been maintained. We have HVAC systems that are not compatible with the correct filtration systems for COVID. And that goes back to funding. So when we're talking about what we need to do to keep our educators and our students safe, we're talking about what we should have done decades ago. And when we slashed education even further after the recession, and our legislature refused to restore that funding, we're paying that consequence. So we hear people asking us to open our doors, asking to teach our kids face-to-face, but we have not provided a safe space for our educators or for our students. And so I hope anyone asking their teachers to go back into this environment are also people that are voting yes on 208 and that are advocating for funding for our schools, our students, and our teachers.
Thank you, Ms. James, for your response.
We will now begin the next question with Mr. Montero. High school teachers on average within this district are paid $32,740 to anywhere between $58,450 per year. With this universal struggles of online learning currently, do you believe this is an appropriate salary for those teachers? How would you allocate these funds?
Right. So first of all, absolutely not. Our teachers are underpaid, and they have been. You know, our public education system has been systematically defunded since 2008. You know, we as a governing board have to treat teachers as the professionals that they are. And that comes with the correct salary. You know, we expect a lot from teachers. When we talk about mental health, when we talk about teaching our students in a hybrid model, we're asking our teachers to do a lot. And we have to be able to support them properly. You know, it comes back with, again, we need to find more funding. I do think that Proposition 208 is a step in the right direction to give our teachers the proper compensation that they need. We as a district need to make sure we're providing competitive compensation and benefits to our teachers as well as our classified staff. You know, these are the people that are the backbone of our district, teaching and investing in the future. And we as a governing board need to be there to support them. And I think right now, you know, our hands are tied and we need to be able to, you know, we aren't in a position to do that, but we need more funding to do so.
Thank you, Mr. Montero. For you, Ms. Reeser?
I think, well, always a teacher's work is, you know, I don't think there's any amount of money that would ever fully, you know, give that thanks back to our teachers. But I think as we're going into, you know, this pandemic year, I think really making sure that we are compensating our teachers. We need to make sure we are retaining teachers, not just for this year, but for the following year. We're going to see some really hard financial struggles, and making sure that we are retaining highly qualified teachers, making sure we have a consistent staff within buildings is not only good for the student climate, but well, for the campus, but for students. So making sure that we are allocating funds for our teachers and pay and keeping it competitive, making sure that we're passing Prop 208, and making sure that as board members, we are always advocating for better pay for our teachers.
Thank you, Ms. Reeser. Now for you, Mr. Fletcher.
Thank you. Had a moment there trying to get to my mute. I appreciate Burdetta and Sandy's passion, where they talked about going out and making sure that we got the bonds override. Those things were very critical to help the funding in our schools. 2 years ago was a real bellwether for the state of Arizona. Those of us that were involved with education at the time saw what was happening. The Red for Ed movement was very much a part of the dialogue of the state of Arizona in April and May. During those time periods, I did something. I talked to some of our legislatures about it, and I said I was disappointed with what they had done in the past. I also had the opportunity of going to both Corona High School and McClintock High School and Tempe High School, where I stood with the teachers and I waved to the people who were driving by and supporting the Red for Ed movement at that particular time. So I've been involved with this. I've lent my voice to it. And as a board member, I will continue to lend my voice to make sure that we're building strong schools and that we're getting the funding that we need. I've also been down to the legislature. I'm a member of the Arizona Education Association. And this past February, I was invited to go down and lobby and to talk to our legislator about important school issues. So again, as a board member, you're going to see me a lot, and I'm going to be very active in our community.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fletcher. Now for you, Ms. Hodge.
Okay, thank you. Yes, as Mr. Fletcher said, Sandy and I have been very vocal when it comes to Red for Ed and supporting our teacher increased pay. One of the things I'll say right off, and I'll say it 3 times in a row. Yes on 208. Yes on 208. Yes on 208, because we do need 208. We have, and I want to question you on that 32,000, because I don't think that's our average in Tempe Union. Tempe Union's a higher amount than that, because we have fought as a board to make sure that our teachers are retained and we keep we retain our great teachers and recruit great teachers. And the only way we can do that is with salary. So we just had a meeting on that, and quote me on it, it's a lot higher than 32,000. And if it's at 32,000, then I, as a board member, will want to know why we're just at 32,000 when I've seen that we're higher than that. So our teachers, our support staff, we need to keep funding them. We have to do everything possible. I don't care if we march every year, we do it. We have to go knock on doors, but we have to keep the funding up for our teachers. That's the only way we keep our district strong. So I'm always in support of it. And I'll say it again, yes on 208. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the passion, Ms. Hodge. We will move on to Ms. James.
I love that. Yes on 208. You ended that way, Bernetta. I'll start it that way. Yes, I will never forget standing in my classroom and looking, it was, back in the days of paper, 22 years ago, and looking at a pay scale and thinking, I can go get my master's and I can move over here. And when I've been teaching this long, I'm gonna make that much money. And I looked toward my retirement. I was a 22-year-old brand new teacher, and I thought that looked pretty good. I moved to New York City. I had great benefits. I had a great salary. And when I moved back here, my friends had been frozen on a pay scale since 2007 and are making so little compared to what they're worth and what they should be making. We're paying money out of our own pockets for our kids, as Ms. Reeser said, and it's a disgrace. So no, that is not an adequate salary. We have so much more to do. I don't have a pay scale anymore. There's no incentive to go get a higher degree. There's no incentive to stay in education as a teacher. That's horrifying. Our students deserve better. They deserve certified and experienced teachers, and we retain them by giving them a good salary and passing 208 so we can get on that road to a pay scale, good benefits, and excellent teachers.
Thank you, Ms. James. Lastly, Ms. Lau.
Thank you. So I'd be remiss without saying, with the governor's 2020 plan, our teachers had a boost in their salaries, along with our 5% increase in our M&O override that used to be 10%, it's now 15%. So our average salaries for our teachers are competitive. And I'm saying it's never enough for our teachers, but you can say we need more funding, but we also, I think, have to look at other ways that maybe we can enrich our teachers' lives. What else can we do for them besides money that maybe helps them with their job? Maybe we look at more paid leave for them, or just and ask them what we could do. So we have to be innovative there. And also we have to consider raises for our support staff. Our support staff has not had a raise for a number of years. And so right now we're concentrating on them because they do an awful lot to support our teachers. So it's a big picture, a lot of salaries, and we need to make sure that everyone's earning an equitable salary.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lau.
All right, we are moving on to the next question. We are going to begin with Ms. Paige Reeser. In what ways has the current board not met your expectations, and what do you plan to do differently?
Well, I think one thing that Bernetta and Sandy, one thing I think you guys have done really well. I think you guys always advocate for us teachers. So I think that's one thing that you guys are doing amazing. I think one thing, yes, with the social emotional support, you guys are really have advocated a lot for that, but I think we can do a little bit more. And that's one of the directions that I would like to see as we push forward with that.
Thank you for your answer, Ms. Reeser. We'll now be moving on to Mr. Fletcher.
There we go. I think our board has done a great job, and I compliment the work that they've been doing. Two areas that I would be advocating for that I don't hear much advocacy for is, number one, the trades. I talked earlier about how every student needs a moniker, and my one daughter struggled a bit trying to figure out what her moniker or her identity was. She finally found it in the trades when she went to cosmetology school through East Valley Institute of Technology. We need to have conversations with our students more when they're in their sophomore year of what are you going to do upon graduation? I like the fact that we highlight all the students going to college, but we also need to highlight those students that have received their CT certificates. So one thing that I would bring to the board is a strong voice and an advocate for our trades and making sure that those 30% of our high school students who are graduating, who don't have or are not going to college, but they have a career path and they have some thoughts on what they can do because there's good paying jobs in the trades. We simply need to advocate for that and provide better resources for them. The last thing that I would advocate for is just getting out in the community. I want to go to the Kiwanis Club. I want to go to the Rotary clubs. I want to write articles in our newspapers. I want to advocate for education and be a big spokesperson to our community.
Thank you for your response, Mr. Fletcher. We'll now be moving on to Ms. Hodge.
But the answer is already there. You know, we're the perfect board, so I don't have anything. No, I'm just kidding on that. I honestly believe that I believe that I say a lot what Mr. Fletcher says. I think that one of the things we do need to do, and we do a good job of it, is if we do push college and we do push college ready. But I think that we need to be more. I think we can do more when it comes to being just life ready. Like, I think that maybe we can bring back how to balance a class that maybe can balance checkbooks or how to just have a life course. I think that's what's missing in our lives. I think that we go so far into the grains of everybody being just in college, but every child is not wanting to go to college. So how do you prepare for life? And I think that's one of the things that as a board, I can see we need to do more into getting people more ready for life. You know, a lot of people sometimes they graduate from high school and don't even know how to sign their own names well. So those are things that we need to do. Our common sense things that I think are missing. I think as a board, we can bring that back in and we need to incorporate that in some kind of course in our district. And that's one of the things that I am going to work on when I'm reelected again, is making sure that we get that balance in there. Thank you.
Thank you for your answer, Ms. Hodge. We'll now be moving on to Ms. James.
Thank you. Well, I think there are a lot of things that this board does really well. And when I will echo what Ms. Reeser said, I have watched educators be centered in conversations. I have heard board members say, but what about the teachers? If we go back before fall break, what is that going to do to our educators? And the reason that they did not go back before fall break is because the board centered those conversations. And I would want to continue that. We have to listen to educators. They are burning out. They are teaching live and remotely at the same time. It's not sustainable. And we can't ask them to take care of themselves if we don't give them any tools or time to do so. So I would want to continue that. I also think that representation is vital. And we have a big community. We have a district that spans over Tempe, parts of Chandler, Guadalupe, Phoenix. And we have kids coming in from the reservations as well, and outside of Maricopa. We have to represent all of our students. And that is in curriculum, in our school communities. We have to really work on that, doing outreach and having our communities come to us to teach us as well.
Thank you, Ms. James. We will now be moving on to Ms. Lowe.
Thank you. So we're really not a top-down board. We really support ideas that come up to us. And I think our board works really well together. You have to work with anyone that's elected, and we're all different, but you have to work in a positive way for our students. And we really support ideas from our schools. So it might be someone with a vocational from 2 schools, they want to emphasize that. But we might have 3 schools that really want to emphasize engineering and robotics. So we have to really listen to what's happening in our school sites and what they want to do with their students. I think that's extremely important. And the other thing I think we really do need to look at is we need to start getting proactive. And what do we want to look at like in 2025? Do we want to have maybe a health and wellness school that emphasizes that? Or do we want a school that emphasizes engineering for women and maybe other opportunities? So that's what I think we have to do.
Thank you, Ms. Lowe. We'll now be moving on to Mr. Montero.
Right. I first want to say, Tempe Union is a leader in a lot of aspects across the state of Arizona. I also want to circle back down to mental health. We're approaching 2 years since I first stood in front of the podium at the governing board meeting to introduce a resolution, and when students shared their stories. And I've seen and worked with our district and seen the impact, the work they've done on mental health. But we can always do more. We have to make sure that we're reducing the stigma around mental health and implementing programs and open and honest conversations to reduce that stigma, as well as investing in looking into our counseling department and a critical lens, as well as going back to what Mr. Fletcher said. We are, and what Ms. Hodge said, we're very college focused right now. And there are a lot of students that college isn't for them. And we have to make sure we have the programs there that are there to support our students that know that college may not be the right step for them. And I think these are just one of many reasons why I think it's important that we elect diverse perspectives to our governing board. And as someone that's been a student in our district, I want to bring that perspective of a lot of the things that I've seen have been lacking, but things we've done well from a student perspective on the governing board.
Thank you, Mr. Montero, for your response. Our next question will begin with Ms. Lowe. What is your stance on Prop 208, and do you believe it respects the community's income while also supporting schools adequately?
So I think I'm so grateful for Prop 208 and everyone that's working on it. It's supposed to bring $940 million into our schools each year, and it taxes only the top earners. So we have never recovered from the 2007-8 recession. And one area where we haven't recovered is the counseling area. My concerns are this. I don't think we're going to get the $940 million a year with the pandemic and what's happening with our economy. So I'm concerned that the earnings will not be as much as they're saying it is, and there's no end date. So we're locked into this. So those are two of my concerns. It could go on forever, and this money could drop to, $300 million a year, and we'd have to go out and ask the voters again to change that to something else. So I'm delighted. I hope it passes, but I'm also apprehensive that's going to bring in what they're forecasting.
Thank you for your response, Ms. Lowe. We're now moving on to Mr. Montero.
Right. I do support Prop 208, and I will be voting yes on it. A lot of the questions that we've been asked tonight have circled back to the issue of funding. This has been an issue that we've talked about at the state level and at the state legislature for many years. But now more than ever, we have to have the proper funding to support our teachers and our educators and our classified staff and our students. We are going through unprecedented times with this pandemic, and now more than ever, we have to have the proper funding to do such. Prop 208 has strong accountability measures. We know where the money is going to go. And that's one of the many reasons why I support it. We as governing board members have to be advocates for more funding for public schools, and this is a step in the right direction. As governing board members of a public school district, we have to be able to take opportunities such as these to bring in more funding to do the things that we have all talked about bringing into our district.
Thank you for your response, Mr. Montero. We will now be moving on to Ms. Reeser.
Well, the conversation for tonight, again, is funding. And if we're not going to fund it now, then when? And I think Prop 208 is a great opportunity for our schools to help lead us in the right direction that we need to be going, since we are not getting the proper funding in Arizona. And I know we have some concerns with the upcoming economy, but with the taxes that could be raised, our teachers uniquely bear a lot of this responsibility in the classroom. And I really want to make sure that we have the adequate resources moving forward into the 2021 and 2022 school year. And I really think that Prop 201 will help solve some of these issues that we're having. So vote yes on Prop 208.
Thank you for your response, Ms. Reeser. We'll now be moving on to Mr. Fletcher.
There we go. I'm unmuted now. Thank you. We need the funding. There's no doubt. One thing that was interesting, though, I read in the Phoenix Business Gazette this last week that some of the economic crises in Arizona might not happen. Our economy is actually doing better, and our tax dollars being collected now are stronger than what was originally thought in June and July. But that doesn't mean that we let the gas off the pedal, so to speak, in terms of our efforts to make sure that we get all the funding that we need. I do have a challenge, though, with some ballot initiatives that lock us in, and it doesn't give our school board the flexibility of using funding where it's needed. Sometimes when we fund things by set things like ballot initiatives, it puts money in one category where it's needed in another category. And once it's passed by the voters, you can't go back and change it till you go back to the voters. So I absolutely support the funding mechanism. I support the causes of 208. I think it's a wonderful thing. And I think that we need to fund our schools, but I also express some concern about locking us into a formula that can only be changed by the voters rather than by the school boards and by our legislatures. So yes, let's get the funding, let's make it happen, and let's get our schools funded like they should be funded.
Thank you for your response, Mr. Fletcher. We'll now move on to Ms. Hodge.
Okay, sorry about that. I couldn't get mine unmuted also. Yes, I support 208. I'll say it again. Yes, I support 208. Let me say it louder. Yes, I support 208. We need this. And I understand there's issues, there's situations. We need this. And especially with the economy we have right now, we're in a pandemic. We have to make sure that our teachers, our staff, our district will be able to fund. We need this. We need 208 to pass. Please, I'm telling anybody who's out on this call, listening to it, please support 208. Yes on 208. Yes on 208. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hodge, for your very passionate response. We will now end this question with Ms. James.
Thank you. I think it's a resounding yes, is my obvious answer. And I do also think that it's okay that there's no sunset clause for this, because should there really be a sunset clause for funding something that is constitutionally mandated? I don't think so. And if you actually look at the breakdown within 208, yes, it is allocated this percent, 50% to teacher salaries, and so on. And there's CTE funding, there's mentorship, there's scholarship programs. Our support staff is going to get a boost. But within those categories, there is also flexibility. We also are actually able to change the legislation with a supermajority. So yes, we could go back to the voters, but we also could, if there's a big problem, then our legislature can change it with a 75% vote. So it is not etched in stone completely, but it's etched in stone enough that it makes us feel good that we have a funding source that is dedicated to us. It does not go to admin. It does not hurt small businesses. It absolutely will serve our students. It will serve our teachers, and it will keep education in Arizona alive, and it will be a starting point for improving our school systems. It's just the beginning.
Thank you, Ms. James, for your answer.
And that concludes our questions. The candidates will now share their closing statements. We will begin in the opposite order that we began with you, Ms. Paige Reeser.
All right. Well, just thank you again so much for hosting this tonight. I just really, first of all, enjoy being able to talk with all the candidates and current board members. And to you students, you guys did an amazing job tonight. So teaching has been one of my greatest joys of my life. And if I have the opportunity to serve my students once again at the high school level, I promise to always advocate for all students, teachers, parents, and stakeholders. Not only can I be a voice for concerns of teachers, but what our students go through on a daily basis. I want to address how we can best serve our students with learning differences, as most of them have stigma that really hinders them from being able to what they're able to do. I want to keep Tempe Union District competitive with retaining teachers, highly qualified teachers. Governing is about bringing our community together and figuring out what is best for our schools. Deciding policy and budget needs a teacher's voice at the time. And So in November, you have 3 votes. I hope to be one of your votes. And again, vote yes on Prop 208.
Thank you so much, Ms. Weiser. Mr. Montero.
Well, thank you again to the students for putting this together. You know, I said it at the beginning, this is your governing board, and we have a unique opportunity this election to elect a governing board member that looks like you, that understands you, and understands what your daily struggles are as a student. You know, I've sat in our boardroom for the past 2 years, from as a student in the district, past when I graduated, because I deeply care about our students, our teachers, and our staff and families in this district. It's why I ran for this board. I've had the opportunity to work with our superintendent, work with our governing board on the issues that are close to your hearts. And I want to continue to bring that perspective to the governing board. I'm proud to be nationally and locally endorsed by such a broad coalition of leaders who understand the importance of bringing this new voice to the Tempe Union Governing Board. You know, we have a 5-person board, and you know, a lot of the people, or we've talked a lot about, you know, putting students first, and I want to take that a step farther, because I understand what it's like to be a student. I know what our students need and what the impact that this board has had on our students. A voice that I think has been missing from our governing board, and can bring a pair of fresh eyes to a lot of the issues that we discuss. So again, thank you for putting this on. It was great to hear from the candidates here, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Montero. It's a pleasure. Now we'll move on to Ms. Lau.
So thank you, students. This was really fun tonight. I really enjoyed it. I appreciate that. So as someone that's been actively involved with education for a long time, I understand the importance of quality education for each and every student, and I will work hard to make sure that you all have equal opportunities for learning and for support that you need to be successful. I will continue to make decisions that focus on you, and I understand the importance of stakeholder input, especially from our students. We receive input through Student Superintendent Council, through student focus groups, which are now being facilitated by Dr. Moon, our coordinator of equity and diversity, through emails and the many conversations I have when I go out to schools. From parents, I get emails. Through the site council and principals, we receive information. And I'm happy to say that in January, we're starting a parent task force made up of parents from each school, and they will be meeting regularly with Dr. Mendeville to share concerns that they have and provide input. And we can't forget teachers. Their input is vital for success. I'll continue making decisions that are fiscally responsible and are transparent. And it's been a joy to serve this community. And I hope to continue to use my experience in public education to support all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lau. Next will be Ms. Sarah Lindsay James.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having us tonight. I think these student-led forums have been a highlight, and I think you all should be hired to do these national level debates. You're phenomenal. So thank you. And I also think it's incredible to highlight such a local office like school board, and to understand the importance that a school board has in our community. I believe that having the voice of an educated or an experienced educator is vital. Somebody who understands what teachers are going through, can see what students are going through. And like Mr. Montero said, it's 5 members. That different perspective that each of us can bring to a board is so important. I also think that any candidate running, any board member serving, should be advocating for education funding. And I believe that everybody should be able to say they're voting yes on 208 and should be working to pass it. Because if you're going to be dealing in a budget and allocating funds, I sure hope you're working to allocate those funds, because our students deserve better. I know Mr. Montero his education was almost entirely underfunded, and I think that's tragic. And we should not have anybody else graduate from our district that is able to say that. So let's pass education funding in Arizona, and let's keep working, listening to our students, to our teachers, and all of our communities.
Thank you, Ms. Hodge. Ms. James. We'll begin now with Ms. Hodge.
Okay, I want to start off by saying Thank you to my students. And Sandy and I can both say with pleasure and proudness, thank you to our students for putting this on. It makes me more proud than anything else to see you guys when you do this. I see future governing board members in here right now. So thank you so much. I want to start off by saying it's been a pleasure of my life to serve for the last 4 years on Tempe Union. This district gave me so much. It started my life I sat in your seats. You know, I was a student there at one time too. And to be where I'm at right now, I have to credit Tempe Union as putting me on the right path. I also want to thank my teachers. I thank my staff. I thank my teachers. Our teachers are the foundation. I still have some of my teachers in the district that taught me, and that makes me so proud when I see them still teaching others. So our teachers, our support staff, our principals, I just want to thank everyone that the job that we've done. And if I do get elected in November, and I really do hope I do, that I want to continue to serve and be transparent in representing our community, our students, our teachers, our parents. We're all one. Tempe Union is one, from the hills, I'll say it every time, from the hills of Desert Vista all the way to the mountain of Tempe High. We are one district, and I want to continue to be supportive and be transparent and be the community advocate for our district. So thank you so much for all that you do, Dr. and Mr. Weldell. Thank you so much for being there. And Warren Cole, thank you for putting it in video on it. So, and for all my candidates, I want to thank you guys for being here. You guys have made me a better candidate, how strong you guys are. So thank you so much for everything that you do. And I hope that it's only 3 of us going to win. I hope that we all stay involved, because it doesn't always have to end on the governing board part.
Thank you, Ms. Hodge.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, last, Mr. Fletcher.
Can you remind me how much time we have?
You have a full minute, sir.
Thank you. Well, I think all of us saw the presidential debates that happened about 2-3 weeks ago, and this is far different. I've enjoyed meeting the fellow candidates and the respect that we have for one another, and I appreciate learning from them. I think all the candidates here are working hard and passionately, and I'm glad that we can have a civil debate and we can have respect for one another, because that's missing in our society. And I'm glad for what we can accomplish here. We started this school year with 1,000 teacher shortage in the state of Arizona. We have to address these issues. We have to find the funding for these issues. We got to give the teachers the respect that they need. I've been a teacher. I understand teachers. I'm married to a teacher. I'm surrounded by education. I've been involved with education for some 30 years, and I have a great background and depth on that. I've also raised 4 students. I understand students. I understand what it means to be a student, and I appreciate the opportunity to work with students. As a school board member, I'll be an advocate to the community. I look forward to being a very strong voice to support our community, to support our teachers, and support all of our students. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
This concludes the MPHS Public Forum. We would like to thank everybody who made this event possible, as well as everyone who has attended online. We would also like to wish the candidates good luck in the upcoming election. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful evening.